one unforgettable, once-in-a-lifetime experience. Samantha had always lived a life that was predictable in every sense. She woke up every morning to the same sound of her alarm clock, brushed her teeth, brewed her favorite coffee, and walked the same path to the small school where she taught. She loved her job, teaching had always been her passion, but she couldn't deny the small voice in her heart that whispered for more. Her life, although comfortable, felt like a routine loop, where every day was a repetition of the one before. Samantha was 28, and to the outside world she seemed content, but deep down she felt a restless energy, a craving for something extraordinary, something that would make her feel truly alive. Her small apartment reflected her organized personality. Everything had its place, from the neatly stacked books on the shelf to the potted plants by the window, which she carefully watered every morning. On weekends, she would meet her friends at the same coffee shop, discuss the same books, and laugh over the same stories she had told 100 times. Life was safe and predictable, but Samantha felt an invisible weight pressing on her, a quiet dissatisfaction that grew louder with every passing day. She dreamed of adventure, of a story she could tell that would make her eyes light up and her heart race. One rainy afternoon, as Samantha sat curled up on her couch reading a novel, her attention was caught by a bright flyer sticking out from a pile of mail she hadn't gone through yet. It was colorful, almost screaming for attention, and the words on it seemed to jump off the paper. Volunteer in the Amazon rainforest, help save wildlife and explore the unknown. Samantha paused, staring at the flyer as rain tapped against her window. She had never considered traveling to such remote places. The Amazon, that vast, wild jungle full of unknown creatures and towering trees. It sounded dangerous, exhausting, and exciting, all at the same time. Her curiosity wouldn't let her ignore it. She began reading every word on the flyer. The program promised volunteers the chance to work alongside scientists, help with wildlife conservation, and live in a small, eco-friendly camp in the middle of the rainforest. There would be long hikes through dense forests, nights under a sky filled with stars, and the rare opportunity to see species of animals that many people only saw in documentaries. Samantha could feel her heart beating faster as she imagined herself trekking through the jungle, surrounded by the sounds of birds and insects, breathing in the fresh, earthy scent of the rainforest. She hesitated at first. Could she really do it? Samantha had never been on such an adventure. Her life had been about stability and comfort, not wild forests and unpredictable situations. The thought of leaving behind her apartment, her routines, and even her friends for something so uncertain made her nervous. But the longer she stared at the flyer, the more she felt an inner excitement she hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long while, the idea of stepping into the unknown thrilled her more than it scared her. That night, Samantha couldn't sleep. She kept imagining herself walking under the dense green canopy, helping researchers track monkeys, observing exotic birds, and maybe even discovering something new. She pictured sitting by a campfire, listening to the stories of other volunteers from around the world, people who had left their comfort zones just like her. The more she imagined it, the more she realized how desperately she wanted this experience. It wasn't just about adventure. It was about feeling alive in a way her quiet, routine life hadn't allowed. By the next morning, Samantha had made up her mind. She went online, filled out the application form, and wrote a letter explaining why she wanted to join the program. She spoke honestly about her love for nature, her curiosity, and her desire to challenge herself. She didn't know if they would accept her, but just applying felt like the first step toward breaking free from her predictable life. Sending the application made her feel both scared and proud. She could imagine telling her friends that she had done something bold, something that would change her life forever. Days passed, and Samantha tried to carry on with her normal life, but it was difficult. The anticipation was like a quiet hum in the background of her mind. Every time her phone buzzed with a new message, her heart jumped with hope, wondering if it might be the program accepting her. She imagined packing her bag, saying goodbye to her apartment, and stepping onto a plane to a place she had only read about in books and seen in documentaries. It was exciting and terrifying at the same time, and she realized how much she had been craving this kind of challenge. When the acceptance email finally arrived, Samantha could hardly believe it. She had been chosen. Her heart leapt with joy as she read the message again and again, making sure she hadn't imagined it. Suddenly, the quiet longing she had carried for years had a path forward. She felt an overwhelming sense of anticipation, excitement, and nervousness all at once. She would be leaving everything familiar behind and stepping into a world that was completely unknown. Over the next few weeks, Samantha prepared herself as best as she could. She researched the rainforest, learned about the animals she might encounter, and read survival tips for volunteers. She bought practical clothing, sturdy shoes, and a backpack that could hold everything she would need. She made lists of essentials, carefully planning what to bring, but she also realized that no amount of preparation could truly prepare her for what lay ahead. The thought of the dense jungle, the unfamiliar sounds, and the challenge of living in a completely different environment made her both nervous and thrilled. As the departure day approached, Samantha felt a mix of emotions. She was nervous about leaving her safe, predictable life behind, but she was also eager to see what the experience would bring. Her friends and family were supportive, though they worried about the challenges she might face. "It will change you," her best friend said, smiling. "You'll come back with stories you'll never forget." Samantha nodded, feeling a thrill at the thought. She didn't yet know how true those words would be, but she felt ready to find out. On the morning of her departure, Samantha stood at the airport, her backpack heavy on her shoulders, her heart racing with anticipation. The journey ahead was long and uncertain, but for the first time in years, she felt alive in a way that routine had never allowed. She took a deep breath, imagining the towering trees, the calls of exotic birds, and the possibility of discovering something extraordinary. Samantha didn't yet know what awaited her, but she felt certain that this was the first step toward an unforgettable, once-in-a-lifetime experience. She smiled to herself, realizing that sometimes the most extraordinary adventures begin with a single, bold decision, and she had just made hers. Samantha stepped off the small plane and immediately felt the heavy, humid air wrap around her like a thick blanket. The smell was earthy, wet, and unlike anything she had ever experienced. Birds called to each other somewhere above the towering trees, and the sounds of insects buzzed all around her. The rainforest was alive, and for the first time, Samantha felt the weight of just how different this world was from her quiet town. The small eco-camp where she would stay for the next 2 weeks lay a short drive away, and as the van rumbled along the muddy path, she pressed her face to the window, watching the dense green canopy stretch endlessly on both sides. Upon arrival, Samantha met the other volunteers. They were a diverse group, people from all over the world, each with their own reasons for being there. There was Amir, a college student from Egypt who loved animals. Lucy, a writer from England who wanted to experience life beyond the city. And Diego, a photographer from Brazil eager to capture the raw beauty of the rainforest. Everyone seemed excited, but there was also a shared nervous energy. No one truly knew what to expect, and that uncertainty hung in the air like a cloud. Samantha felt a mix of relief and anticipation. She was not alone in feeling small and unprepared in this vast, untamed environment. The first day was a gentle introduction. Volunteers learned basic survival skills, such as how to set up a hammock, purify water, and walk safely through the jungle without disturbing wildlife. Samantha found herself clumsily fumbling with equipment, getting tangled in straps, and repeatedly asking questions. Despite her mistakes, the trainers were patient and encouraging. They reminded everyone that the jungle demanded respect, but it also offered rewards for those willing to listen and observe carefully. Samantha felt both nervous and thrilled. She realized that even small mistakes could lead to unexpected challenges, but that was part of the adventure. By the second day, the real challenges began. The trails became narrower, and the humidity pressed down on Samantha as she trekked deeper into the forest. Her clothes clung to her skin, and beads of sweat trickled down her face. Every step required attention, as roots and uneven soil made slipping a constant risk. Insects buzzed relentlessly, landing on her arms, legs, and even her face. She swatted at them absent-mindedly, but soon realized that patience and acceptance were necessary. The rainforest didn't cater to comfort. It demanded respect and awareness. Samantha felt exhausted by the end of each day, but a strange exhilaration lingered. She was living a life completely different from anything she had known, and every sound, smell, and sight was new and fascinating. As the days passed, Samantha began to notice the beauty of the jungle in ways she had never imagined. She observed bright green frogs hiding among the leaves, birds with feathers so colorful they seemed unreal, and insects that moved with precision and purpose. At night, the forest came alive with a chorus of sounds, the calls of howler monkeys, the chirping of crickets, and the distant splash of water from hidden streams. Samantha lay in her hammock, listening to it all, feeling simultaneously small and connected to the vast world around her. She started keeping a small journal, recording her observations and the emotions she felt. She wrote about the colors, the smells, and the strange mixture of fear and awe that came with being so far from anything familiar. Despite the wonder, there were moments of real struggle. On the fourth day, a sudden rainstorm swept through the camp, drenching everyone in minutes. The trails turned into slippery mud slides, and Samantha found herself slipping multiple times. Her shoes were soaked, her backpack heavy, and her energy drained. She wanted to complain or turn back, but when she looked at her fellow volunteers, she saw their determination and grit. Together, they navigated the rain-soaked paths, helping each other when someone lost their footing. By the time they returned to camp, they were exhausted, muddy, and cold, but also laughing at the shared chaos. Samantha realized that these moments of difficulty made the experience more vivid and meaningful. She began to understand that real adventure was not about comfort, but about pushing through challenges and finding joy in unexpected moments. The days were not only physically demanding, but also emotionally intense. Samantha found herself reflecting on her life back home. In the quiet moments, she thought about how much she had avoided risks, how often she had stayed in her comfort zone, and how much more she wanted from life. The rainforest seemed to mirror her inner journey, dense, mysterious, sometimes intimidating, but full of beauty for those willing to explore it. Every day, she learned something new about herself. Her patience, resilience, curiosity, and her ability to adapt to situations she never imagined facing. Each challenge, from navigating muddy trails to waking up to the sounds of unknown animals, became a lesson in courage and self-discovery. One morning, the group embarked on a long trek to a remote part of the jungle where researchers had spotted a rare species of monkeys. Samantha was both nervous and excited. The trail was narrow, and the forest seemed even denser than before. Sunlight barely touched the ground through the thick canopy above, and the air smelled damp and wild. Every sound startled her at first, from the sudden rustle of leaves to the screech of a bird overhead. She realized how little she knew about the natural world, how fragile and complex it truly was. Each step forward was a mixture of wonder and caution, and she felt more alive than she had in years. By the third day of the trek, Samantha began to notice the small, often overlooked details of the jungle. Tiny flowers bloomed in hidden corners, ants moved with precise coordination, and leaves glistened with drops of morning dew. The forest had its own rhythm, and Samantha started to move with it rather than against it. She learned to listen to the birds, to the wind, and to the quiet rustling that signaled the presence of unseen animals. Every moment required awareness and mindfulness, and she felt her senses sharpen in ways she never expected. She began to understand that the jungle was teaching her more than wildlife conservation. It was teaching her patience, presence, and appreciation for the world around her. However, not every moment was peaceful. Samantha faced real fears during the trek. On one occasion, she slipped on a wet root and almost fell into a shallow stream. Her heart raced, and for a moment she felt panic rise in her chest. But she caught herself, took a deep breath, and reminded herself to stay calm. Her fellow volunteers helped her regain balance, and they laughed together at the minor scare. These moments of danger were small but real, and they made her heart beat faster and her mind sharper. Samantha realized that adventure was not just about seeing beautiful places. It was also about facing fear and overcoming it. By the end of the first week, Samantha felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Her body was tired from the long hikes, the heavy humidity, and the constant physical effort, but her mind felt clearer and more alive than it had in years. She had discovered a part of herself that she didn't know existed, a person capable of courage, curiosity, and resilience. She had formed connections with her fellow volunteers, shared laughter and stories, and experienced moments of awe that would stay with her forever. The rainforest had become a teacher, a challenge, and a friend all at once. Every evening, Samantha would sit by the small campfire, sharing stories with the other volunteers. They talked about their fears, their dreams, and the moments in the jungle that had left them breathless with wonder. She realized that the experience was as much about people as it was about the forest. Each person brought a unique perspective, a different story, and together they created a shared memory that none of them would ever forget. Samantha felt grateful for their companionship and for the chance to step into a world so far removed from her ordinary life. By the end of her second week in the jungle, Samantha had changed in subtle but profound ways. The rainforest had tested her physically, challenged her mentally, and inspired her emotionally. She had faced discomfort, fear, and exhaustion, but she had also witnessed extraordinary beauty, felt deep connections, and discovered a resilience she never knew she had. Each day had been a lesson, each challenge a step toward growth, and each moment a reminder that life was richer and more meaningful when she embraced the unknown. By the middle of her second week in the rainforest, Samantha had grown more confident in her ability to navigate the jungle. She had learned to read the sounds of the forest, distinguish the calls of different birds, and spot subtle signs of wildlife hidden among the thick leaves. Her body, though still tired, moved with greater ease over the slippery trails, and she felt a deep sense of connection to this wild, untamed world. Yet, as prepared as she felt, nothing could fully prepare her for the day that would change her experience forever. The morning had begun like any other. The sun peeked through the dense canopy, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. Samantha and the group were tasked with tracking a rare species of monkey that the researchers had been monitoring for weeks. Excitement buzzed through the team. This was one of the main goals of their volunteer program, and everyone was eager to catch even a brief glimpse of the elusive creatures. Samantha's heart raced with anticipation as she adjusted her backpack and followed the narrow trail into the deeper jungle. The trail grew narrower and more difficult as they ventured further. Roots twisted across the ground like natural obstacles, and vines hung low, threatening to trip the unwary. The humidity was heavier than ever, making every step feel like a small effort of endurance. Samantha kept glancing around, listening for the distinctive calls of the monkeys, trying to spot movement among the trees. The deeper they went, the quieter the forest seemed to become, as if holding its breath in anticipation of something. Suddenly, a loud rustling came from a nearby thicket. Samantha froze, her heart skipping a beat. The other volunteers stopped as well, scanning the dense foliage. For a moment, everything felt frozen in time. The soft hum of insects, the distant call of a bird, and the rustle of leaves blending together. A few steps closer, and she caught a glimpse of movement, the bright eyes of a monkey peering at them from the branches above. Samantha's heart leapt. She felt a rush of excitement mixed with awe. After days of observing, hiking, and searching, they had finally found what they had been looking for. But in her excitement, Samantha didn't notice that she had drifted slightly from the group. One careful step, then another, and she realized too late that the trail had narrowed even further, and she was now separated from her companions. Panic briefly surged through her chest. She called out softly, but the thick forest swallowed her voice. The sounds of the jungle, which had once felt familiar and comforting, now seemed overwhelming and isolating. Every snap of a branch, every distant animal call made her heart race. She was alone in a place where she had learned to respect the power and unpredictability of nature, and she felt the first real fear of the entire journey. Samantha took a deep breath, reminding herself of the skills she had learned over the past 2 weeks. She knew she had to stay calm and think clearly. She retraced her steps carefully, paying attention to the sounds of the group and the landmarks along the trail. The forest was dense, almost dizzying in its complexity, but she forced herself to focus. Every step was deliberate, and she reminded herself that she was capable, resourceful, and resilient. Despite the fear, she felt a strange excitement, as if the forest itself was challenging her to find her courage. Time seemed to stretch as Samantha moved through the jungle. Hours passed, or at least it felt that way, and the sun climbed higher in the sky, making the humidity even more suffocating. She felt the weight of her backpack, the sweat dripping down her back, and the relentless buzzing of insects, but she pressed on. She thought about her life back home, the predictable routines, the comfort, the safety, and realized how much she had longed for a challenge like this. This moment, terrifying as it was the adventure she had secretly dreamed of for years. Eventually, Samantha noticed a faint sound of rushing water. It was distant but unmistakable. Her heart lifted. Water often meant a natural landmark, and landmarks could help guide her back to familiar paths. She moved toward the sound cautiously, pushing through vines and stepping over roots, her senses alert to every movement around her. The closer she got, the louder the sound became, until she finally emerged into a small clearing. There before her eyes was a waterfall cascading down rocks into a clear, sparkling pool below. Samantha stopped in awe. The waterfall was breathtaking, more beautiful than anything she could have imagined. Sunlight caught the water in perfect beams, creating tiny rainbows in the mist. The roar of the water was powerful yet soothing, and the sight of the untouched pool surrounded by lush greenery made her feel like she had discovered a hidden world. For a moment, she forgot about her fear, her exhaustion, and her separation from the group. She simply stood there, absorbing the beauty of the scene. It was a moment of pure wonder, one that reminded her why she had come to the rainforest in the first place. She realized that being alone had led her to something extraordinary, something she might never have seen if she had stayed within the safety of the group. The waterfall became a symbol of the unexpected rewards that came from stepping outside her comfort zone. Samantha felt a mix of relief, exhilaration, and humility. She sat on a smooth rock, letting the mist cool her skin, and took out her journal. She wrote about every detail: the sound of the water, the shimmer of sunlight, the colors of the moss, and the feeling of awe that washed over her. It was a moment she knew she would remember forever, but she also knew she needed to find her way back. The sun was climbing higher, and staying lost in the jungle could become dangerous. Samantha stood, took a deep breath, and examined her surroundings. She noticed a small trail leading away from the waterfall and decided to follow it cautiously. Every step required attention, and she moved slowly, aware of every sound and movement. Her senses, sharpened by days in the rainforest, guided her through the undergrowth. Though fear still lingered, she felt a growing confidence in her ability to navigate and survive in this challenging environment. After what felt like hours, Samantha finally spotted the group in the distance. Relief and joy flooded her as she ran toward them, calling out their names. They turned, smiling and waving, happy to see her safe. She explained how she had become separated and how the waterfall had led her back. The volunteers were fascinated by her story, eager to hear about the hidden pool she had discovered. Samantha felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Not only had she faced her fears, but she had also found something truly extraordinary. That evening, back at the camp, Samantha reflected on the day. The fear she had felt earlier had transformed into a powerful sense of growth and resilience. She had been tested physically, mentally, and emotionally, and had come out stronger. The waterfall, hidden deep in the jungle, became a symbol of the unexpected rewards that awaited those brave enough to venture beyond their comfort zones. Samantha realized that true adventure was not just about seeing beautiful places, but about discovering her own courage and capacity for wonder. She shared her experience with the group around the campfire that night. The story of being lost, the fear, and the discovery of the hidden waterfall captivated everyone. The volunteers listened with wide eyes, inspired by her courage and the magical sight she had found. Samantha felt proud, not for showing off, but for recognizing how much she had grown in just a few days. The rainforest had taught her lessons she would carry for the rest of her life. Lessons about bravery, mindfulness, and the incredible beauty that awaited those willing to explore the unknown. As she lay in her hammock that night, the sounds of the rainforest surrounding her, Samantha felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had faced her fears, discovered something incredible, and learned more about herself than she ever expected. The experience had been challenging, exhausting, and at times frightening, but it had also been breathtaking, magical, and unforgettable. She knew that this turning point in her journey, the day she had gotten lost and found the hidden waterfall, would stay with her forever. It was a reminder that life's most extraordinary experiences often came when she embraced uncertainty, stepped outside her comfort zone, and trusted in her own resilience. The day after Samantha had discovered the hidden waterfall, a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration settled over her. Her body was sore from the long trek, and her muscles ached from the constant climbs, slips, and balancing acts in the dense forest. Yet her mind was alive with vivid memories. The roar of the waterfall, the shimmering rainbows in the mist, and the sense of awe that had filled her when she first saw the untouched pool. The rainforest, she realized, was both beautiful and demanding, giving her moments of pure wonder while testing her strength, patience, and courage at every step. That morning, the team received a new assignment. They were to help researchers collect data on local plants and animals, cataloging their observations for conservation purposes. Samantha's initial excitement was met with a sobering reality. The work was painstaking, repetitive, and physically draining. Hours were spent crawling through undergrowth, cataloging insects, taking detailed notes, and carefully photographing rare plants without disturbing them. Every day required precise attention and extreme care. One wrong step could crush a tiny ecosystem or harm the creatures they were trying to protect. Samantha realized that adventure was not always thrilling or glamorous. Much of it involved patience, discipline, and respect for nature. Despite the challenges, there were moments that lifted her spirits. Watching a small group of monkeys play high in the trees, observing a brightly colored bird land gracefully on a branch, or seeing the sunlight filter through the dense canopy created a magical sense of connection with the forest. Samantha often paused to take in these moments, breathing in the humid air, listening to the symphony of sounds around her, and marveling at how vibrant and alive the jungle was. Yet these moments were fleeting, and they were always followed by long hours of careful, exhausting work. On one particular afternoon, Samantha's physical endurance was put to the test. A sudden rainstorm swept through the forest, transforming the narrow trails into slippery mud paths. Streams of water ran alongside the paths, and roots became treacherously slick. Samantha struggled to maintain her footing, sliding more than once and nearly twisting her ankle. She could hear the calls of her fellow volunteers ahead, but the rain made it difficult to see them clearly. Panic began to creep in, and she realized that in moments like these, every small decision mattered. She reminded herself to focus, to place each foot carefully, and to move deliberately. The jungle demanded attention, and distraction could have serious consequences. The rainstorm also brought a sense of isolation. Even with other volunteers nearby, Samantha felt the intensity of being in a place where nature completely controlled the environment. There were no shortcuts, no easy paths, and no safety nets. She had to rely on her training, instincts, and determination. The fear that had once gripped her when she was lost near the waterfall returned briefly, but she countered it with a deep breath and a sense of purpose. The rainforest, she realized, was teaching her more than conservation. It was teaching her resilience, courage, and patience in the face of unpredictable challenges. Over the next few days, Samantha faced another kind of struggle, mental and emotional fatigue. Being constantly immersed in the jungle, away from familiar surroundings, family, and friends, began to weigh on her. Small frustrations like difficulty sleeping in the hammock, insect bites, and aching muscles sometimes felt overwhelming. She had moments where she questioned her decision, wondering if the adventure was worth the discomfort and uncertainty. But every time these thoughts crept in, she reminded herself of the hidden waterfall and the awe-inspiring sights she had witnessed. These memories gave her strength and motivation to keep going, reinforcing the idea that real growth often required endurance through hardship. During one particularly long trek, Samantha's group encountered a challenge that tested both teamwork and problem-solving skills. A small bridge, barely visible under thick vines, had partially collapsed, making the path dangerous. The team needed to find a safe way across a deep stream while carrying equipment and supplies. Samantha's heart raced as she assessed the situation. Stepping onto the unstable bridge seemed risky, but the only alternative was a long detour through even denser forest. Together, the volunteers collaborated, supporting one another, holding hands when needed, and carefully testing each step before moving forward. The sense of camaraderie was powerful. Samantha realized that the adventure was as much about human connection and mutual support as it was about the jungle itself. As the days passed, Samantha also noticed a growing respect for the delicate balance of the rainforest ecosystem. Every plant, insect, and animal played a role in the forest's survival. She saw how small disturbances could ripple through the environment, affecting countless creatures. Observing this interconnectedness made her reflect on her own life back home. She began to understand that every choice she made, big or small, could have consequences. The rainforest, in its complexity and beauty, was teaching her lessons about mindfulness, responsibility, and living in harmony with the world around her. Samantha also discovered her own inner strength during these days of struggle. Climbing steep inclines, navigating through dense thickets, and enduring long hours in the humid heat demanded more than physical stamina. They demanded mental resilience. She learned to pace herself, to listen to her body, and to remain calm under pressure. Each successful trek, each completed assignment, reinforced her confidence. She realized that she was capable of far more than she had imagined, and that challenges, no matter how difficult, could be overcome with patience, determination, and a clear mind. One evening, after an especially grueling day, Samantha sat alone by the small stream near the camp. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink as the sun set behind the canopy. She dipped her hand into the cool water, letting it soothe her tired muscles. In that quiet moment, she reflected on the transformation she had undergone in just 2 weeks. The rainforest had tested her in ways she could never have predicted, forcing her to confront fear, discomfort, and fatigue. Yet it had also given her moments of awe, wonder, and profound personal growth. She realized that these challenges, as difficult as they were shaping her into a stronger, more self-aware person. Samantha's experiences in the rainforest were not only physical but deeply emotional. She felt a growing sense of humility, recognizing how small she was in the vastness of the natural world. The towering trees, the powerful streams, and the intricate web of life reminded her that the world was far bigger than her own concerns. At the same time, she felt empowered. She had faced fears, solved problems, endured physical strain, and discovered beauty in the most unexpected places. The combination of humility and empowerment became a defining feature of her journey. By the end of part 4 of her adventure, Samantha had also begun to notice changes in her perspective on life. Back home, she had often worried about small inconveniences and minor challenges. In the rainforest, those worries seemed insignificant compared to the demands of survival, the beauty of the natural world, and the depth of connection with her fellow volunteers. She realized that she could approach life with a new mindset, more patient, more resilient, and more appreciative of the present moment. The struggles she faced in the jungle had revealed her own capacity for growth, courage, and mindfulness. As the days continued, Samantha began to document her journey in even greater detail. Every observation, every struggle, and every moment of awe was recorded in her journal. She wrote not only about the physical challenges, but also about the emotions, reflections, and personal lessons that came with each experience. The act of writing helped her process the intensity of the adventure and recognize the significance of her journey. She knew that these pages would serve as a permanent reminder of the transformation she had undergone in the rainforest. By the end of the week, Samantha had developed a rhythm and confidence in the jungle. She had learned to trust her instincts, respect the power of nature, and rely on the support of her fellow volunteers. The rainforest, which had initially felt intimidating and overwhelming, had become a place of learning, growth, and wonder. The struggles she faced, the exhaustion, fear, and challenges, were now part of the story she carried with pride. Samantha understood that real adventure was not only about discovery, but about facing and overcoming obstacles, learning from them, and emerging stronger on the other side. The final days of Samantha's journey in the rainforest brought a strange mix of excitement and melancholy. She had grown deeply attached to the forest, to the sights, sounds, and rhythms of life within it, and to the friends she had made over the past 2 weeks. The idea of leaving this extraordinary place filled her with a quiet sadness, but it also brought a sense of accomplishment. She had faced fears, endured challenges, discovered hidden beauty, and learned more about herself than she could have imagined. The rainforest had tested her in countless ways, but it had also gifted her with unforgettable experiences and life-changing lessons. On the last morning at the camp, Samantha woke before sunrise. The forest was still, filled with the gentle chorus of birds greeting the day. She stepped out of her hammock, inhaling the cool, fresh air and feeling the soft ground beneath her feet. Every detail seemed sharper, more vivid than before: the dew on the leaves, the patterns of sunlight filtering through the canopy, and the distant sound of a river flowing over rocks. She felt a profound sense of gratitude for the opportunity to experience life so deeply and fully, far beyond the routines and comfort of her hometown. As breakfast ended and the team began preparing to leave, Samantha's mind wandered over the past 2 weeks. She thought of the hidden waterfall she had discovered, the long treks through dense undergrowth, the rainstorms that had soaked her to the bone, and the moments of fear that had tested her courage. She remembered the times when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, and how she had found strength in herself and in the support of her fellow volunteers. Every struggle had taught her something about patience, perseverance, and resilience. Every breathtaking view had reminded her of the beauty and mystery of the world. Samantha also reflected on the friendships she had formed. The volunteers had come from different countries, cultures, and backgrounds, yet they had shared the same experiences, challenges, and triumphs. They had laughed together, encouraged one another, and supported each other through moments of doubt and exhaustion. There was a deep bond that came from shared adventure, something that could not be replicated in ordinary life. Samantha felt grateful for their companionship, realizing that the journey had been richer because of the people who had traveled it with her. As they packed their belongings into the small vans that would take them back to civilization, Samantha felt a quiet sense of nostalgia. She had come to the rainforest seeking adventure and discovery, but she was leaving with much more than she had imagined. She had gained courage, patience, resilience, and a renewed appreciation for life. She had learned to listen to nature, to her instincts, and to herself. The rainforest had taught her that life's most valuable lessons often came through challenges, discomfort, and moments that required her to step beyond what was familiar and safe. During the journey back to the small airstrip, Samantha sat quietly, letting the sights of the rainforest fade into memory. The dense canopy, the sparkling rivers, and the sounds of wildlife would remain etched in her mind forever. She reflected on the personal growth she had experienced. She was no longer the same person who had stepped onto the plane 2 weeks earlier. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and discomfort, and had emerged stronger, more confident, and more self-aware. The journey had reminded her that life was richest when she embraced challenges and approached the unknown with curiosity and courage. Back at the airstrip, Samantha and the group said their goodbyes to the guides and researchers who had led them through the rainforest. There were hugs, handshakes, and promises to stay in touch. Samantha felt a sense of connection not only to the people she had met, but to the rainforest itself. She knew that her time there had changed her perspective on life, nature, and her own capabilities. The forest had been a teacher, and she was leaving with lessons that would remain with her forever. As the small plane lifted off, Samantha pressed her face to the window, watching the endless green canopy stretch below her. The rainforest looked peaceful and timeless from above, a living, breathing world untouched by the rush and chaos of modern life. She thought about all she had seen: the hidden waterfall, the playful monkeys, the brightly colored birds, and the intricate web of life that existed in every corner of the forest. Each sight had been a reminder of the wonder and beauty of the natural world, and of how small and interconnected humans are within it. During the flight, Samantha reflected on the lessons she had learned about herself. She realized that fear was not something to avoid, but something to acknowledge and work through. She understood that discomfort was often a necessary part of growth, and that stepping outside her comfort zone could lead to experiences she would never forget. She had discovered an inner strength she had not known existed, a courage that had been tested and proven in the heart of the jungle. The rainforest had given her a sense of resilience and confidence that she could carry into every part of her life. Back in her hometown, life felt both familiar and different. Samantha returned to her apartment, her school, and her routines, but she was no longer the same person. She approached her work with renewed energy, her friendships with deeper appreciation, and her life with a broader perspective. The challenges she had faced in the rainforest had shown her that she could handle uncertainty and adversity. She had experienced moments of pure awe and joy that reminded her of the beauty and magic in the world. These experiences had left a lasting imprint, influencing how she approached everyday life, decision-making, and even her dreams for the future. Samantha also realized the value of sharing her experiences. She spoke to friends, family, and colleagues about the rainforest, describing the hidden waterfall, the dense jungle, and the wildlife she had observed. She shared stories of her fears, challenges, and moments of triumph, hoping to inspire others to step beyond their comfort zones and embrace life fully. Through her storytelling, she recognized that her adventure was not only about personal growth, but also about inspiring curiosity, courage, and appreciation for the natural world in others. Months after returning home, Samantha found herself making choices she would not have considered before. She planned small adventures, explored new hobbies, and sought opportunities that challenged her in ways both big and small. The lessons of the rainforest, resilience, courage, patience, and mindfulness, guided her actions and decisions. She approached life with a greater sense of gratitude and wonder, appreciating the beauty in ordinary moments and recognizing the potential for extraordinary experiences around every corner. Samantha's journey also left her with a profound sense of responsibility toward the natural world. She became more conscious of her environmental impact, taking steps to live more sustainably and advocate for conservation efforts. The rainforest had shown her the delicate balance of ecosystems and the importance of protecting them. Her once-in-a-lifetime experience had not only changed her life personally, but had also shaped her awareness of the world and her role in it. As Samantha reflected on her adventure, she realized that the rainforest had given her more than memories. It had given her a renewed sense of purpose and perspective. She had discovered that life's most unforgettable experiences often came through challenges, uncertainty, and moments that pushed her beyond what was familiar. The jungle had tested her body, mind, and spirit, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more alive. The hidden waterfall, the long treks, the rainstorms, and the friendships she had formed were all part of a story she would carry with her forever. In the quiet moments of her life back home, Samantha would often close her eyes and picture the rainforest. She would remember the mist of the waterfall, the rustle of leaves underfoot, and the calls of animals in the dense jungle. These memories reminded her that life was full of beauty, challenge, and opportunity. She realized that the journey had taught her to embrace every moment fully, to face fear with courage, and to seek adventure wherever it could be found. Her once-in-a-lifetime experience had become a guiding light, shaping how she lived, thought, and dreamed. Samantha knew, deep in her heart, that the lessons of the rainforest would stay with her forever. She had discovered the power of courage, the importance of resilience, the beauty of nature, and the strength that comes from stepping outside one's comfort zone. The adventure had been unforgettable, life-changing, and deeply personal. It had reminded her that sometimes, the most extraordinary experiences are not planned or guaranteed. They are found when we take bold steps into the unknown, open our hearts to wonder, and trust in our own strength. Her journey had been challenging, exhausting, and at times frightening, but it had also been magical, inspiring, and transformative. Samantha returned to her life forever changed, carrying with her the memories, lessons, and confidence gained from an adventure that would always remain one of the most unforgettable, once-in-a-lifetime experiences of her life.